Hey guys, good morning and welcome to our second video for traffic engineering CE432. In this video, I'm going to make it really short. We're going to finalize the introduction part. We're going to talk a little bit about capacity, and it will be just an introduction, some talk, so I'm able to solve a very few and simple questions that relate to the capacity of all traffic engineering modes. So let's start. We have started working on these parts in this introductory part of traffic engineering. We talked a little bit about safety. We talked a little bit about the tasks of a traffic engineer. We talked about the nature of the demand and supply, and we actually stopped here actually at the nature of demand and supply. So let's start here, guys, and let's talk about the nature of demand and supply. In transportation research and traffic research, there's a really nice dilemma of demand and supply and how they interact with each other. And this is what we call here the nature of transportation demand. What happens here, guys, is that let's imagine now that we have a let me just put here my pointer. So let's say we have a highway, and let's start here. We can start with any of these. Sometimes the demand happens, and let's start here. We have some people living around an area, and because they wanted to start moving around, they demanded transportation facilities, and this is where this interstate or this highway was built. Building the highway causes the land around it to be more valuable, probably more expensive, and more people would, since they can go from one place to another, they would be wanting to move to these new lands. So the transfer facilities gives way to more land use. The more land use means that the land around this highway, the new land, is now valuable and people will move there, and since then there is new land use. Maybe you put here a gas station, restaurants, mall, whatever, and people will now start moving. The more people, the more transportation demand. We have more demand. This road won't handle it anymore, so maybe we start adding a bus route, just a bus route to serve these people. The bus route will encourage more people to move, and here we have more land use, so more people, maybe you have a high-rise building, so this will cause more demand. So more demand, say, you know what, instead of the bus, let's put a subway, or let's put an LRT, light rail transit. And this is the nature of transportation demand. It's iterative, and demand causes supply, supply causes land use, and so on. It goes on and on and on. You can start from any one of these. You can start from land use. For example, a developer went to the desert and he built a factory, so there is a demand, and then facilities and so on. So let's have another example, and I really like this example. Let's imagine that you live in a very suburban area, small area, where we have only 2 houses, and there's a school. So people want now to go from these houses to a school. Since then, people want now to go, so we asked the city to start building these. Maybe it started by just a pathway, and then they asked the city to start paving these pathways into roads. The roads came, the land became very valuable, so we started now building here 2 developments, 2 high rises. Here there was a gas station, a mall, and another mall here. So now traffic became really bad on these intersections. So they asked the city to do something about it. So they started adding lanes and they built here an overpass. The overpass encouraged now that we can reach here building more stuff. So this is an example for the nature of the transportation demand. Given that, we need to talk about two very important topics. These were repeated in the highway design class, but it's an important two ideas that we always need in traffic and highway design. The idea of mobility and accessibility. So mobility is simply that you want to travel from one place to another as fast as possible without any stoppage, with ease, efficiency, and very, very cheap. And contradictory is accessibility. You want to go to every single area. So you want both. So good transportation system must provide both of these two together, mobility and accessibility. And based on that, our transportation system consists of different types of facilities, starting from the small cul-de-sac up to a freeway. This has the highest mobility, high movement, and this has the highest accessibility, access to every single area. And between them we have different types of functional classifications of highways, as we studied in our highway design class. So we have usually, if you remember, the functional design in our highways class are three. We have locals, which give you the highest access to houses, gas stations, malls, and so on. And we have an arterials, which includes the freeways and our interstates. Arterials are the fastest with the least interruptions, and usually it's free. If not, it's very fast. And between them we have something called a collector. Collector collects the traffic from the locals and it takes it to the arterials. Then let's talk about another important part that we use a lot in traffic engineering, and it affects a lot, and it's one idea that gives us a really important input to manage traffic, which is what we call here occupancy, or vehicle occupancy, which is different than another occupancy which we study in this class, which is road occupancy. Right now we want to know just the vehicle occupancy. Well, vehicle occupancy is what you see here in this picture. How many people in the car? And in average for this road here, how many people in average in the car? Notice on the left we have a nice empty lane with this nice diamond in it. This diamond is what we call here HOV, high occupancy vehicles and high occupancy vehicle lane. In other words, you find a sign here like this sign here. If you have two or more, you can use this lane. This encourages people to get away from their car. Probably there's only one person in each of these cars, and you want them to carpool together to get into this HOV lane. So we're going to use this vehicle occupancy. It's a very nice calculation to calculate a lot, and we're going to understand how important is that. And we have to understand that the movement of people versus the movement of vehicles. Here, if you have only one person a vehicle, then 20 people will bring you all these vehicles, which you can fit in one big bus. These 4 vehicles, if there's only one person, if they share the ride together, it will be only one vehicle. So here it's very important, and you can't imagine how much it changes our traffic throughout the city to have more occupancy. And one of the targets of traffic engineers is to increase the vehicle occupancy. So here, for personal capacity, to increase the personal capacity in the vehicle, we want to increase the average occupancy in the car. A really nice idea to put this is that why do we buy a car with 7 seats and we just use one? We want to use all the seats in the car that we carry around everywhere. It's a nice idea to understand, and we as traffic engineers, we try to improve this congestion you can see in that picture. So very good idea, and here we understand how to calculate the idea of occupancy. If you only have one person in a vehicle, one person, and here we're trying now to calculate the capacity, and here's the idea of the word capacity. If you just have one person in a vehicle and you have